When you upload your images to Pro Transfers, we always do a basic image analysis or source analysis on your image, and one of the things that we analyze is the perceived hand feel. Let's take a look at a demo so I can explain what those indicators are and what they mean to the final print. I'm going to start with a demo of an image that is essentially what I would call full coverage with a transparent background. Once that image is in your cart, you can go to your pre-flight summary and scroll down to the hand feel or haptic evaluation. And there's 3 indicators that you can look at here that will help you understand how this may potentially feel once it's been pressed onto a shirt, from a hand feel in your hand or even wearing it on your skin. The first one is ink coverage. What the ink coverage tells you is, of the total canvas that you're printing, how much of it is actually covered by ink. When you're looking at this scale, the closer you are to 0, the less ink coverage that that particular piece of artwork has. So looking here, you can see that the 0 is actually on the right with the 100 on the left. Think about it like a golf score. The closer you get to 0, the better it's likely to feel. The second indicator is ink dispersion. What this measures is the largest contiguous piece of ink. Imagine it as, of all the blobs of ink that may be here, this is the largest blob of ink. And much like the ink coverage, the closer you get to 0, the better it's likely to feel. So again, it's a golf score. You want to get as close to 0 as possible. And the third indicator is the perceived hand feel. This is a composite score that looks at a lot of other indicators about the image to say, between 0 and 100, how likely is this to feel good, or how good do we think this is going to feel? In this case, the closer you get to 100, the better that it is likely to feel. Now, one of the things I want to point out about the perceived hand feel is it's also size dependent. So if you have an image like this one that is all ink except for a little bit around the outside circles, then the smaller the image gets, the better the perceived hand feel is going to be. And that's because sometimes you have a logo or just a small image that you want to put on, like a left pocket or maybe a hat. And when it gets that small, it's still going to feel pretty good. On the flip side, if you blow that image up to 10 inches, at a certain point, it's going to feel like wearing a bulletproof vest. Now, that's going to be true whether you're printing a solid piece of ink with screen printing, vinyl, or even DTF. But let's look at that image when it's been half-toned so we can see a difference in the scores. Here you can see that it's been half-toned, so we've knocked out a lot of the things. We're going to let the shirt come through the image. We can now see the pre-flight summary. Before we jump into that, you can see down below is the original image that was solid, and up above is the half-tone version of that image. When we open up the pre-flight summary and take a look at the hand feel or haptic evaluation on this one, we can see very different results. Here the ink coverage is only 46.6%, or we're only covering the canvas 46.6%. Also, the largest piece of ink on the shirt is only taking up 23.3% of the design. And because the ink coverage is lower and the dispersion is better, we're also getting a better estimated hand feel. And even in this case, it is also size dependent. So if this happened to be an image that was, say, only 3 inches wide, I'll just drop it down to there, you can see that the hand feel is estimated to be much better. Let's do one more demo. We'll do a full evaluation based on that demo, and then we'll move on to a physical evaluation to show you how this manifests on an actual DTF print that you'll get from us. I'm going to upload a halftone image of Chris Cornell, one of my favorite artists. With this image, the coverage ratio is only 10% of the entire image. The ink dispersion, or the largest single piece of ink that you see here, is only 8.9%. That's a fantastic score, and that leads to a perceived hand feel of about 83. That's a really high score. Now let's go take a look at what a DTF and a final result looks like on an actual DTF print and a shirt. We'll take a look at that with a macro lens so we can get up close and personal, and then you can see why a better rating on the ink coverage, the ink dispersion, and the hand feel can lead to a better final product. Okay, this is the transfer that we're going to take a look at. It's just a kind of nondescript guitar player in black and white. It's clearly halftone. You can see my hand through there. So we're going to take a look at the front, and we'll also take a look at the back. We'll do an up-close look, and then we'll look at it after it's been pressed onto a shirt. So let's go over and do that now. We're going to be very up close and personal with this print. So here's the ink pen that I used to create this little arrow right here. And you're going to see that little arrow next to the thing that we're looking at. That should give you some sense of scale for what we're looking at under this macro lens. So that little arrow you're looking at right there is the one that I showed you on the screen a moment ago. And it is pointing at the thumb where the thumb meets the strings. And what you can see here is that while there is ink on this image, there's a lot of empty space. Okay, now here's an area where we're approaching the armpit and there's a lot more coverage here. So this is where you might see more of that LSAR or that contiguous block of ink. And so we measure how big is the largest block of ink. Okay, now we're looking at the backside where you can see some of the white backing with the choke, and you can see the arrow here. This is along the fretboard with the guitar strings, and you can see again here that the coverage ratio on this is going to be really low. And even though we do have some areas on this image where the ink is more solid, that largest contiguous piece of ink that you're seeing on here doesn't take up that much of the image. All right, this is the image that we were just looking at on the transfer after it's been pressed onto a shirt. We're going to take a look at some of the same areas here right in the armpit where we were looking at before. We'll take a look at the fretboard and also where his thumb is right there on the bottom of the guitar. Okay, remember, for sake of reference, this is the ink pen we used to create that little arrow right there, and I will place that next to what we're looking at so that you have some sense of scale. Okay, what you're looking at here is the thumb on the screens. There's the little arrow right here that we saw previously with the pen, and you can see here that there is a lot of shirt. You can see the weave coming through that ink, and that space there is going to make the shirt feel a lot softer, and it gives you an idea of why that coverage ratio and ink dispersion is so important. Now we're looking at the armpit area. You can see here some of the white shirt underneath, but also you can see the edge of where the largest contiguous piece of ink is on the shirt. Now on this particular design, the LSAR, or largest single area ratio, is actually quite small. It's less than 10%. So when we have a very good ink coverage rating and we have a good dispersion rating, the hand feel is going to be great. Just want to point out here that you can even see some of the texture of the DTF, or you can see some texture on the DTF even though it's been pressed, and that actually helps with the feel as well. Okay, now we're looking at the fretboard, and again there's that little arrow for reference size, and here's the end of a fountain pen. And one of the things I want to point out here is just the level of fine detail you can actually get with a half-toned image with some knockouts on it. So you can really get a great hand feel with these DTF prints. I hope this video will give you a better understanding of the hand feel or haptic evaluation indicators that we have on the website, and that'll help you understand how to read those and get a general idea of how your designs are likely to feel once you get your final product. Thanks. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.